This video contains spoilers for Brooklyn Nine-Nine Season 6, Episode 11, titled The Therapist. Hello and welcome to The Rose System. My name is Sarah and today we are reacting to Brooklyn Nine-Nine. This video is not scripted. I am trialing making a video without a script, so please forgive it if I am all over the place. Let's get into it. So this episode is about a missing woman who the therapist believes the husband may have done something to harm her. This episode gets a lot of things really wrong about mental health and mental issues, but it does get a couple of things right. The first thing it gets right is the use of dark humour by people who work in a traumatic line of job. So these are people like doctors, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, or people like myself who have been through extensive trauma, who use dark humour as a way to cope with the things that we have experienced. The other thing this episode gets right is that Jake makes the point that people with mental issues are more likely to be the victim than the perpetrator. Statistically, this is correct. That being said, people with mental issues can still commit crimes, but we are less likely to commit violent crimes. That is something that the show gets right. But right from the beginning, Jake in particular has a messed up view of therapy and mental issues, in that he repeatedly calls the husband a psycho and the therapist creepy. This is where DID starts to interact with the episode. Jake sneaks into the therapist's room in an attempt to find evidence that the therapist is the one who resulted in the woman going missing. On his way back out, he almost gets caught, so he slips into another therapist's room. This therapist greets him and asks Jake who he is, and he claims to be her new client. She goes, "Oh, Garrett," and Jake goes, "Yep, that's me." And multiple personality disorder comes up as the condition that Garrett believes he has. Now, multiple personality disorder is an outdated term. The correct term is dissociative identity disorder. And Jake makes the hilarious line, "Got buttloads of peeps living in my head, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt." I get that, because that's what we experience with our DID. He talks about how there's different people living in his head and how there are voices in his head. These are a little bit more tricky. Different people living in my head is a term or phrase that I personally use, but I know a lot of DID systems don't. I personally don't like to call my alters voices. I prefer to call them people, alters, identities, because voices has a slightly different connotation for people with DID, because DID is so often confused with schizophrenia. Now here is where the show starts to get a little bit worse. Immediately, the therapist calls upon Tatiana, a 7-year-old British girl, immediately asking to speak to her. This does not happen in real life therapy. A therapist who knows anything about DID will not rapidly call out alters. Definitely not straight away. Trust is built. Key alters are spoken to in their own time before the system as a whole gets used to the therapist. Another aspect of this is that many systems do not have control over their switching. It takes a lot of communication, it takes a lot of work for alters to be able to switch on command. We can't do it, we can't control when we switch. There have been times when we've needed a protector to front, but despite our best efforts, the protector hasn't been able to. It's tricky. It takes a lot of communication and it's quite difficult. As the interactions with the therapist continues, more alters are called to the front. There's Brian from central London, there is a guy from Australia, and as an Australian, I must say, I am offended by the horrendous Australian accent that Andy Samberg pulled off. It was bad. So there are numerous alters who are from London, there's someone from Australian, and then the therapist brings up Satchel, the African American man and born in 1908. This is where the show falls into the issue of alters claiming to be from cultures and ethnicities the body doesn't belong to. If we are working on the assumption, it's an assumption, if we are working on the assumption that Garrett himself is a white American man, claiming to have an alter who is African American is seen as problematic in the system community. Satchel may have features in his internal image that mirrors this culture, but Satchel himself will not be from this culture. I know systems who have alters who have different accents based upon the source material or who they were around when the alter split. I know a system who has alters who on one hand have very thick English accents and then alters who have very thick American accents, but that doesn't mean that those alters are necessarily British or American. It's just that's where the accent comes from. But that being said, those alters aren't from Britain or from America. They're from the place that the body lives in and the body grew up with and the body's culture. Fortunately, to his credit, Jake realizes that impersonating an African American man is problematic, but then he says that the alter should never come out, which is his way of defending it. If Jake actually had DID, this would also be problematic, but I'm giving it a pass based on the fact that Jake doesn't have DID. He then gives a really bad Morgan Freeman impression before running out of the therapist's office. There are so many issues with this episode. It's got DID misrepresentation. It's got someone faking DID, which is majorly screwed up. And it's played for as a gag. It's a joke, it's a gag, it's a chance for Andy Samberg to pull out his accents and pretend to be someone other than Jake. It's a problematic episode, and each time we watch it, we cringe. The benefit of this episode is that at least the character who actually has DID is not the murderer and isn't accused of faking. Jake is the one who's faking, not Garrett, the unseen character who may actually have DID. But this character is never shown. And so it's not a good trade-off. It really isn't. So, yeah. The best part of the episode comes towards the end. Jake is held at gunpoint by the bad dude, the murderer, the therapist, who is the one who's caused all the issues. And Jake begins to work through the schema of how he blames himself for his parents' divorce. Jake makes the move to go towards seeing a therapist for himself, which is great. This is what we need. We need characters to realize that therapy doesn't make you weak. Therapy doesn't always work the first time around. You sometimes need to see multiple therapists before you get in with the right one. We saw 3 therapists before we connected with the therapist we are currently with. And we are fortunate in that we have been able to access a therapist who can work alongside us. Many systems aren't that lucky. Many systems go without therapy. Or if they are in therapy, they're ill-suited, they're ill-matched with the therapist they are with. Or the therapist they are with doesn't understand DID. It's complicated. And it's tricky. So, is this good DID representation? No. Trying to look on the bright side just makes me cringe even harder. We love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's a comfort show for us. We put it on when we're studying just to have a bit of background noise. But this episode is bad. In some ways it's better than the Criminal Minds episodes we've watched because, you know, the person with DID isn't involved in the plot in any way, shape or form. And the issue with it this time is it's played as a joke. It's a gag. It's designed to get a laugh out of the audience. It is in no way respectful to people who actually have DID. So, yeah, yeah. Someone with DID looking at this may be able to look at it and use it as a way to express their own dark humour. There are some things that Jake said that are completely relatable when you do have DID. But we are still struggling to find decent DID representation. The only good one we've come across is Petals of a Rose. You can find our video on that up above. Please watch with a grain of salt. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of those TV shows where it's pretty easy to suspend your disbelief. It's comedy, it's not designed to be realistic in any way. But sitting down and watching it line by line, it's bad. It's bad. Honestly, the funniest thing about it is the horrendous Australian accent that Jake gives. It's problematic. But that's okay. No, it's not, but it is. Anyway, I'm now rambling. Don't hate on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's a good show. But this disorder is a disorder that shouldn't be made fun of unless you are the person actually experiencing it. Someone with DID can have dark humour about their own DID and share dark humour with other people who have DID, but it's not something that should be joked about outside of that context. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to watch more reaction videos based on content that includes DID, check out the playlist up above. Please subscribe if you haven't already, It would mean a lot to us. We're almost at 500 subscribers, which is incredible. We're going to do a Q&A for our 500 subscribers, so watch out for the post where you can write in your questions so that we have a line of questions that we can answer for you. Please know you are loved by the incredible God of the universe, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!